Coming up, Eddie Howe talks about the two players who are closest to a return for that game against West Ham. The manager talks about his psychology and how he's got to get it exactly right going into the trip to the London Stadium, and also the scary thing about this Newcastle United team. So Eddie Howe just held his morning press conference here. A very blustery but quite warm training ground here in Benton. Hence why I'm in the car, to try and give you a little bit better sound quality of what I'm about to say. But look, Newcastle is a place that's absolutely bouncing at the minute after that 4-1 win over PSG. Everyone's on a high, and I think Eddie Howe today typically delivered a measured performance in the press conference. He was always going to, be the man who tries to not bring people down to earth, but just remind everybody, fans, players, staff, they've got a huge game against West Ham coming up on Sunday in the capital. And it's one where Newcastle will really want to sign off on a high before that, international break comes along. Big questions, as always, about injuries. Who's going to be fit? Looks like Callum Wilson and Joe Linton are going to be the closest, according to Eddie Howe. They're putting in the hard yards as we speak, trying to get fit for this game. And really, if Callum Wilson is fit, then that'll be a huge boost for Newcastle with Anthony Gordon. He's going to be missing. There could be some rejigging in the team, freshen things up. And Joe Linton coming back in is always a huge boost. So for all, Newcastle were very good against PSG. They know that this is another game very quick on the back of that. So they really do need to, get some fresh legs in the team, and then hopefully sign off for that international break, as I say, with 3 points. But look, overall, Eddie Howe's mood, delighted with the way it's going, delighted with the response from his players. Since that Brighton game, that was referenced. We keep going back to that. A couple of the players have spoke about it as well. But Newcastle in a very good place. They know this game against West Ham is important for them. They know that the international break's coming up. They don't want to stew like Brighton. They don't want to stew on a bad result going into the internationals. So just offering a few more considered thoughts after Eddie Howe's press conference today down at the training ground, going into that big clash against West Ham on Sunday. I think really for Eddie Howe, he knows that the city's on a real high, and he knows everyone's absolutely buzzing off everything that went with that PSG game. The build-up, the result, the atmosphere, the aftermath. He's well aware of all that, and he's well aware that people were on a high. But I think for him now, it's a case of get the focus back, get everyone back on point, and really start looking at this West Ham game and try to sign off in style for the international break, which is what Newcastle weren't able to do last time against Brighton. A lot's changed since then. I think there's a lot of credit gone in the bank since then. For me, even if Newcastle did do the worst and lose the game at West Ham, I still think that people wouldn't overreact to that, because Newcastle have just had so many games. They've got so many results. But Eddie Howe isn't entertaining any talk like that. He's on about trying to get the result that's needed to sign off from what he calls this block of games. He wants to finish off on a high. And if Newcastle do it, then they'll be in a European place going into the next 2 weeks, which would be good to look at the table and know Newcastle are really back at the business end of the table after what's been a difficult start. We'll dig into the injury stuff first and foremost. Eddie telling us that the two players that are closest to a return are Joe Linton and Callum Wilson. I think they're putting in a lot of hard work trying to be fit for this game. But really, I think there seems to be a question mark over at least one of those players. We'll have to wait and see. Eddie talking about how there is sort of a bit of short-term pain in the squad. Players picking up knocks. Mentioned Alexander Isak, the bandaged up sort of moment where he goes back on the pitch and it gives it a real go and plays very well. But he's obviously still nursing a knock after that game. So we'll have to keep an eye on all the attacking options. Obviously, Anthony Gordon is suspended for this game, can't play. reach 5 yellow cards, so he won't be involved. But I think overall, the team's still in a good place, and that brings me on to my next kind of discussion point, which is it's absolutely scary when you consider that Newcastle have gone on this 6-game unbeaten run, beaten teams like PSG, beaten teams like Manchester City, and they've done it with not only injuries to key players, but also they've done it with, without hitting the heights. I don't feel this is a team that are yet to really hit first gear, which is a scary thing considering PSG have just been swept aside. So I do think for Newcastle now, they've got the momentum. Comes in just before a national break, but they've got momentum certainly in the season, and I think that they've got every chance of getting better and better. That's the thing. The scary thing is this team can get way better than they already are, and that is something to look forward to, I think. Now, we talked this week about how the PSG win, the 4-1 win over French giants PSG, was almost a moment in time, really, and that it was very much the modern day equivalent of, say, beating Barcelona in 1997, or beating the Manchester United 5-0, beating one of the big great teams. And I think that's something for this generation. They can take that away now, and they can move it into the next kind of 10, 20, 30 years. They can talk about this result regardless of what happens. And that, for me, is something big. But again, the scary thing is I think there can be bigger results, more impressive results. You've got Borussia Dortmund coming up here in 2 weeks. They will not fancy coming here. And Newcastle will believe they can get another huge result and, humble a team as big and bold as Borussia Dortmund. These are teams who've, got a Champions League finals, won Bundesliga titles, play this attacking brand of football. They're very much a team that's, produced big players. But Newcastle could, put another big result on them in just 2 or 3 weeks' time. So it's all happening for Newcastle at the minute. This game against West Ham, last season ended 5-1 in Newcastle. We'd certainly take another one of those. But it's going to be difficult because West Ham above Newcastle in the league at the minute, on a really good run of form in Europe. I think there's 17 games unbeaten or something in Europe, having won the Europa Conference League last season. So they actually got one over Newcastle all those years. We've been waiting for a trophy. West Ham went and done it last season. So look, there's a lot of fear against West Ham because they're a team who, even without Declan Rice, can do it against the big teams. We know that now. David Moyes has done an unbelievable job down there. But if Newcastle do what they've done in the last few games, then perhaps we shouldn't be worrying at all. But overall, I think Newcastle will go down there and they'll attack. And I think they'll try to get into the lead early, like they did the other night. And if they can, then hopefully we're celebrating another big result. But it's been a huge couple of weeks since that Brighton game. Losing down there was a painful result, but Newcastle since then have just got better and better, and this game really, they've got the opportunity to sign off on a high, so fingers crossed they can do it. We'll be going down there bringing you more coverage from the London Stadium this weekend, so stay with us for that and enjoy the journey, and hopefully it's another 3 points.